Only talking and thinking about your traumatic stress isn't how to recover from it. In fact, using only cognitive techniques to recover from traumatic stress may work in the short term, but long term, you may end up feeling more stuck and it can be even harder to heal. If you're wondering why and how that is and what to do instead, then tune in because this podcast is for you. Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things and build resilience so you can feel better in your body, enjoy your life again, and maybe even love your work again. Welcome to the Resilient Woman Podcast.
Hey, it's Jen. Only talking and thinking about the traumatic stress that you faced isn't how to recover from it. In fact, only using cognitive techniques and talking about traumatic stress may work in the short term, but in the long term, you will end up feeling more stuck, and that trauma might be harder to heal from because it's buried deeper. I understand why you would think that talk therapy and cognitive techniques will be the best way to address the chronic and traumatic stress that you face. For centuries, experts have touted talk therapy and cognitive techniques as the gold standard for healing all mental health issues, including trauma. And the thing is those things can and do help for a while. But the problem is when you've been facing traumatic stress, that stress is encoded in your body, not in language. So here's what happens when you are in a traumatically stressful event or environment. Your body goes into your fight or flight response typically. It could go into the shutdown response. But in those responses, the part of your brain that does narrative memory, the parts of your brain that do the thinking and the talking and all of that are relatively shut down. They're relatively inactive during trauma because all of your energy is going to fighting or fleeing, escaping that danger in any way possible. So that once a traumatic event has ended, our memory is encoded not in language, not in story that is based in language, but rather in images, in body sensations, emotions, things like that. And so the problem is when we try and talk about what's going on, the narrative that we have is really narrative that comes from those body memories, from those images, from those emotions. And so to heal, instead of just talking about that, we really need to get to the root of the stored memory, which is in the body. So this is why you can go to years and years, sometimes decades of talk therapy or talk for hours and never really feel better. Alternatively, you may feel better for a while, but then those problems might resurface. So instead, you can use body based techniques to heal from the traumatic stress that you face. Most of these body techniques require work with a therapist. And so I want to share about two today, but then we're going to really focus on one. My two favorites are internal family systems and trauma center, trauma sensitive yoga. And I'll share about trauma center, trauma sensitive yoga at a future podcast because it's a lovely protocol that's been shown to be so effective in the research. But today I want to share about internal family systems because this is something, there's parts of it that you can start to do on your own. So, internal family systems is a protocol that was developed by Richard Schwartz in the 80s, actually. And it was a really organic process in developing it because what he realized as he was working with patients, he noticed them talking in the language of parts. Specifically, he worked with eating disorders. And so he would hear them say, well, part of me wants to heal from my bulimia, but a part of me doesn't want to give it up because of this, right? And as he paid attention and leaned in and got curious, he learned that these parts had roots that were deeper than what was only going on in the present, and that he could work with these parts to unhook them from that past and help them come to the present. So there was more present moment orientation for the person, for their parts. And so then they were able to address the problem in the present. And so it's really a neat protocol that honors our multiplicity. And we're not talking about dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. Though this can help with that, we all have parts. Like right now, there may be a part of you that's like, what is Jen talking about? That sounds kind of wild. I'm not sure I believe it. And there might be a part of you like, yeah, of course I'm here. I've been trying to get her to listen to me all the time. Right? And so we all have parts. You might have a part of you, I had a part of me last night that really wanted Jet's pizza, which delicious, by the way. Because, my tummy wasn't feeling good from my fourth COVID booster. And there was a part of me that's like, oh, it's not super healthy. Oh, it's not going to make you feel good after. But the part of me that didn't feel well was like, screw it. We're not feeling well. We need to feel better. And this type of food, for whatever reason, a little bit of grease tends to help my nauseated stomach, right? And so those parts kind of battled it out a little bit. The part with the pizza won, and I'm not going to lie, it was delicious. But anyway, we all have parts, right? And so if we can honor that and start to notice that, then we can start to work with the multiple experiences and perspectives that we have going on for each and every event in our life. And so, some things about IFS. Um, First, we recognize that we have parts and we can start noticing them and, naming them. I mean, you don't have to give them like human names, though you can. A lot of us have a critical part. You might have parts that are like the healthy, fit, and strong part that's like, no pizza for you. That has a reason why they think that's important. And yet, there's another part that's like, just eat the damn pizza already. And so, the important next thing about this is that all parts are welcome. None of our parts are bad, even our parts that do really destructive things, right? Some of us have parts that can get really destructive, like with addiction behaviors, like, eating, overeating, alcohol, drug use, self harm, suicidal or homicidal ideation, all those things. Those are pretty extreme behaviors. And those parts are bad. Ultimately, they have a purpose and they're trying to help you in some way. It's just that the way they're going about it isn't particularly effective for your life in the present moment, necessarily. I mean, sometimes it might be. And so the thing about parts being welcome is if we can start to understand they are trying to help us, even if the way they're doing it seems outdated, like something we would have done when we were a teenager, or ineffective for what's going on, then we can start to get to know our parts and be able to get curious about, hey, what's that about? Why am I feeling shame about eating this pizza? And is that okay? Or can I shift that dynamic inside myself? And there's other parts that are like, yeah, we want to be healthy, and that's important too. And you can start to work with these inner systems that we have, all the parts, start to get more aligned with who and how we want to be in the world now. A lot of times in IFS therapy, we get to know clients' parts and we realize that those parts are actually functioning as though it's 20 years ago. And so sometimes if we can update our parts, that it's like, hey, it's 2022. I'm 48 years old. Well, that's how old I am. I don't know about you. Sometimes that can help, right? So even if you're not in therapy right now, a nice first step with IFS is to just start to notice your parts and honor them and welcome them. You might even start to understand what message they're trying to convey. Like, what are they trying to tell you? What need are they trying to meet? Maybe there's another way they can help you meet that need. It's really important that if you're going to start noticing and connecting with your inner system, with your inner parts, that you're not shaming them. There's no need to shame these parts. They are doing the best they can with what they know how to do. Sometimes these parts came on into our bodies, into our system at a very young age, which is why, we'll feel them in our body, right? Because they relate to a certain memory that's stuck in the body. And so it's important that we don't shame them, but if we can express gratitude for getting us through whatever tough time they helped us through when they came up, and also recognizing that maybe the way they got through that time doesn't apply anymore, right? And so, one way, if you're wanting to do some of this work on your own, Jay Earley, his name is spelled Earley, wrote a book called Self Therapy. And I think there's several like editions or whatever, or several like versions that you can work through. It's a really nice start to do some of this work on your own. I will say, if you have deeper trauma work, to be done, I definitely highly recommend working with a therapist. There's a lot of really heavy stuff that you can bump into when you start to go back into anything trauma related. And so it's important in those cases, especially if you have a lot of like early life complex trauma, it's really essential that you seek out an IFS therapist like myself or someone else who's licensed in the state where you live. So there is the IFS Institute. The website used to be selfleadership.org, but now it's changed. So you can Google IFS Institute and it'll come up for you. So if this is all resonating with you, go ahead and stay tuned so you can hear about an opportunity to do some further work with me. Take care. Hey, it's Jen. Are you a woman in a high pressure career or industry like teaching, nursing, social work, another kind of counseling profession, maybe an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a respiratory therapist, or maybe you work in finance? If so, do you find yourself coming home collapsing on the couch every day after work? Maybe you have only enough energy to scroll social media and binge Netflix. Or maybe you know what you need to do like exercise, eat well, and sleep well to get yourself to feel better, but you just can't get yourself to do it. Perhaps you find yourself feeling less compassionate towards the people you serve. Or maybe you feel stuck in a job or career that you used to love. If this is you, you may be facing chronic stress. I'm excited to announce that I have a compliment workshop that I've recently opened up to other professions besides nursing. I have a complimentary workshop coming up on Saturday, November 12th at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We'll meet live on Zoom for how to recover from chronic stress and build resilience for women. It's okay if you can't make it live, you can still register so that way you can have access to the replay. So I'd love to see you there and please share. Take care.